Hey everybody, welcome to Local Business Hacks Podcast. I'm your host, Carl Case, and I'm on a mission to help you. Every week, we're going to be talking to local business owners and experts to get their best tips, tricks, and hacks to grow your business. This show is designed to teach you, inspire you, and motivate you to take massive action and start to build your future-proof business. Whether you're just starting off or you're taking your existing business to the next level, this episode is for you. So let's get started. Hey, local business hackers. I'm your host, Director of Global Business Development for Referrizer, joined today by the Chief Revenue Officer of Wodify, Brendan Rice. Brendan, welcome to Local Business Hacks.
Thanks for having me, Carl. Bummed we're not doing it in person, but excited to be on.
Soon. So talk to me a little bit about your role, Chief Revenue Officer of Wodify. How did you get to this point in your career? Talk to me about this journey.
Yeah, for sure. So I've been involved in the tech industry and tech startups pretty much my entire career. Right prior to Wodify, I actually started and sold an e-commerce mattress company. So very different industry, different world to be in. But I joined Wodify about 5.5 years ago, and I've grown with the company and super excited to be part of what we're doing in the fitness and wellness space.
That's awesome. So let's transition right into it. What is Wodify? How can people get involved?
Absolutely. So Wodify is a customer retention platform, and we actually started about 11 years ago now, and we built the first digital retention tool in CrossFit and functional fitness. So we built software, started as a side project of our founder and CEO as he was running a different consulting business. We just built it over the holiday season one year, solving a personal problem he was experiencing in CrossFit, which was it was very difficult to track your performance and your results and how you're improving in CrossFit because a lot of it was done by pen and paper. So we started as digital performance tracking in CrossFit. We gave gym owners the ability to type in their workout in a computer instead of writing it on a whiteboard. And we would push it to a TV in the gym, and we would push it to their WordPress website. And most importantly, we would give all of the athletes at that gym the ability to track their workout and see if they hit a PR, see how they were doing. And really the light bulb moment was when we realized the impact it was having on retention for CrossFit gyms, because CrossFit was growing super rapidly, but people would join and then leave after 2 or 3 months to go try a new fitness trend. So we started in CrossFit, and we've grown over the past 11 years to now serving over 5,000 fitness businesses in 80 countries around the world. We're super pumped. US is still our biggest market, but we have a lot of customers in Australia, Europe, Canada, kind of all over. And our core markets are still CrossFit and functional fitness, and then as well as Jiu-Jitsu and mixed martial arts now. So how can people get involved? Well, I think 2 ways. One, if you own a fitness business or a mixed martial arts business of any kind, we'd love to talk to you and explain to you how customer retention platforms and our software is unique and different than a gym management software or a CRM that you're using just to manage billing and communication, and how that can drive value for your business. And also, just if you're interested in staying in touch and hearing what we're doing, we have a blog. You can visit blog.wodify.com. And one of the things we try to do on our blog is share unique insights that we have by gaining access to 5,000 businesses' data, client data, performance data, revenue data. So we try to make sense of that. We have a 3-person business intelligence team that really just sits there and crunches numbers and pulls out insights for gym owners. So I think those are the 2 ways I'd encourage people to get in touch with us.
Awesome. So Wodify.com, WODIFY.
That's it.
Sweet. Brendan, transitioning right into local business hacks. I can imagine being in this forever evolving software world for the last 10 plus years. You've experienced some hacks along the way. So I welcome you to share the stories that taught those hacks so that we can put them in our toolkit.
Yeah, for sure. So when I was thinking about this, I think what I want to focus on mostly, and where I think we have probably a unique perspective and where we can provide a lot of value, is on that retention side of things. So the first kind of thought I had was, before we get into some hacks that could drive retention or anything, the first tip I would have is really for every local business owner to know their numbers. And specifically, I think at this point, that's pretty cliche advice. A lot of business owners know how much revenue they're making, how many leads they're generating, probably their lead conversion rate. But the number that I would challenge everyone to know off the top of their head is their 90-day retention rate. And why is 90-day retention so important? So first of all, what does that mean? That means what percent of your clients that join your business are paying members after 90 days? That's a critical point. If you make it to 90 days, 55% of them will remain for beyond 1 year. So that's really like this inflection point of they've onboarded to your business and they really are likely to stick around for longer. And one of the reasons that I'm so confident in the importance of knowing your numbers is I went through an exercise with our customers where we identified our customers with the best retention. There were a couple of gyms that just had like great, one of the gyms was in Australia, and I called them and I said, hey, I'm giving you a call because you have some of the best 90-day retention in our customer base. So I'd like to share some of the tips you have with our customers. And I didn't tell him what his retention was. And he goes, and I said, what do you think your 90-day retention was? And he's like, I think it's between 92 and 93%. And I was like, yeah, like it's 92%. And so like the fact all of the people who I called knew their 90-day retention. And I didn't call some of the customers that were on the lower end, but my guess is some of those folks probably wouldn't have even known it. And so they wouldn't know what to try or what to test and how to improve it. So I think the first tip is know your numbers. And if there's one that maybe you're not tracking, or even if you are, great, but a lot of people don't track, is that 90-day retention rate.
I think even more importantly, and correct me if I'm wrong, does Wodify offer digital agency services where you guys are funneling leads into that funnel?
We have some marketing resources. Yeah, we're not a full service agency, but we have some marketing tools.
Gotcha. My reason for asking is we offer kind of similar modalities at Referrizer as Wodify. I think there's a definite opportunity to collaborate. But when I looked at our numbers as far as leads that originate through Google versus on Meta or other platforms, forget the 90-day retention. We're seeing members stay for 12 plus months, and educating franchisees and owner operators on where are these channels that they're advertising that are driving those results. Obviously, there's nothing better than a reputation campaign or something that you can push to build out on the current database that you have. But it's incredible, people. Like, this advice of knowing your numbers is something that you must know. I mean, going back to other episodes where we've had people talk about top franchisees and systems with thousands of franchisees, their top franchisee knows every single person that works inside of their business, their family's names, and it's just about knowing those things. And it's amazing how the people that know that really always stand out.
Yeah, absolutely. So with the context of retention being so important, and first you got to know what your retention numbers are. And I completely agree. I mean, by no means I think 90-day retention gives you something to focus on, which is the early experience, but you're looking for probably multi-year average customer length in order to have a really healthy business. So the next tip in terms of how to improve retention would be think really hard about what the first impression of the experiences the client is having at your business. And the tip, so the story, a few stories, and a lot of these stories are like part of my job as I work with our customers, or even just not working with our customers, is every time I travel, I try to drop in a different fitness business. And so I've seen like this huge spectrum of operations. And I think one of the themes I see in CrossFit and Jiu-Jitsu and a lot of these is it's really intimidating. And I think business owners don't realize that, because for them, their business is their comfort zone. They want to be in the gym 12 hours a day. Like it's so comfortable for them that they don't realize how intimidating it is. And I've seen people walk into Jiu-Jitsu, especially, like Jiu-Jitsu is very intimidating. You're going in and you're wrestling with strangers. And I've seen people walk in a Jiu-Jitsu school and not have a single person say something to them other than the front desk person say, sign this waiver, and then go stand on the mat, just literally looks terrified, go through the whole class, walk out. And I'm just thinking like, that person's never, ever coming in this business again. And I've also seen the opposite. I've seen people come in, have this like white glove service. Immediately a coach or instructor comes up and says like, hey, how are you doing? So I think there's a lot of different ways to create that experience. But one piece of advice in terms of how to start thinking about that is put yourself through from the top of the funnel, like your website or whatever, all the way through a class. Just go through it yourself, walk through, fake book a class, come in, see what that experience is like, and just see if there's any opportunities for higher touch points or more personalization.
Yeah. And secondly to that, just to add another hack that I love is go to 10 businesses that are like you in your area. See what they do that you like, see what they do that you don't like, and make your own version of it. Because It's amazing. We have a client I spoke to last week, and they're starting an IV therapy business inside of their medical practice. And he has no clue what he's doing. He's never got an IV from anyone else. And I'm just like, go treat yourself, go experience what your other people are doing. So that's
and you know what, on that note, one of the other things I had written down was on the same vein, a little bit different though, which is to get inspiration from other businesses. And in a lot of the companies we work with, I would say they do an okay job of exploring similar businesses, but what they don't do is explore ancillary businesses. So the example is I was at a CrossFit competition. There's tons of gym owners, and we rolled out a product to do live heart rate tracking in the gym. So everyone in the class can see their heart rate. And so I was talking to a handful of the gym owners about it because one of the businesses that really popularized that is Orange Theory. And I was talking to them because I've dropped in at a bunch of Orange Theories, and I was asking about it, and none of them had ever been to an Orange Theory. And it just blew my mind. And I was like, what about like a Barry's and I listed like all these, and they're like, no, like we're CrossFitters. We do CrossFit. I drop in at CrossFit gyms. And I was like, and then the crazy thing is the next part of that conversation was about, one of them was asking some of the other ones how their front desk was set up. And I just heard them having this conversation. And I was like, whether or not, you don't have to agree with the methodology of Orange. You don't have to agree with the methodology or even be into the workouts, but like you will learn, you will take away at least one thing from every type of different fitness business. And you can at least recognize the business value that they've created. Like there's a reason that these companies exist and they're successful. So yeah, I agree. Like going and getting inspiration from other businesses in the market's really important.
Also, from a partnership perspective, you have no idea. Your direct competition could end up being one of the greatest partners of you if you figure out how you guys support each other. So I think that we can preach grassroots marketing all day. People, get out and tell the world what you do. It's so important.
Yeah. And it's just fun. Like I went to, I'm not big into like spinning, but I dropped in at like a Soul Cycle and a few other spinning classes. And when I dropped in, they wrote my name on the locker, and I had a little handwritten note in my locker. And I was like, okay, like you're not going there to learn about like what part of their like spinning class you should bring back to you're just like learning about these things that, you know, they've tried over hundreds and hundreds of businesses. They figured out work, and you can go back and apply to your business.
Shout out to Soul Cycle, the only player in this space that really wrote their entire software start to finish that works really well. Proud of that one. But my team over at Cycle Bar is doing great.
Cycle Bar is a great one too. I went there recently as well. Cool. So next local business hack. I think, again, this is all through the lens of retention. So one thing we've been really focused on with our software is, and the way we approach this is, we know, again, we have the data of 5,000 businesses. We look at it in aggregate, and we look at what features can we roll out to improve retention? What are the best customers doing? And one thing we realized is even really good gyms or martial arts studios that have really good instructors or coaches, most of their clients are only in their business 1 hour a day, maybe plus or minus 15 minutes. And what we've done is create a suite of features. You don't need to use our software to implement this, but think about how you can have personal touch points with those folks at some point during the 23 hours they're outside of your gym. Because what that's going to do is you're going to be providing more value because you'll be having some sort of valuable conversation with them. It's going to get them thinking more about your business, and it's going to just increase that general word of mouth marketing you're going to have, because they're going to be telling their friend, they're going to be like, oh, you know, this person from my gym just texted me. So there's a few different ways you can do that. Like I said, we have features to support in-app chat. You can use texting. You can there's community elements in our app with leaderboards and liking and commenting. You can use Facebook groups, but whatever it is, just ask yourself, are you reaching out to your clients at all during the majority of their day where they're not physically inside your business?
It's an amazing idea. Do you have some examples as to what that would look like for a CrossFit studio reaching out at 5 o'clock on a random day?
So I think for our businesses, the most effective way to do that is to track. And again, this is all functionality that our product supports, but you can probably find other ways to do it, is to track information about that individual. So a really effective reach out is checking in on injuries. I had a coach at a CrossFit gym that I was going to in Philadelphia who reached out to me, and they were like, hey, how is your knee feeling any better? I know a few weeks ago you had come in and we modified a movement. And those are things, I mean, that was years ago and I remember that interaction.
Yeah.
So that tells you like that something worked, and that's how you proactively improve retention. Another really good one. So injuries is a good one. The theme is like any sort of personalization, but injuries is a good one. Another really good one is milestone goals they're going for. So a lot of people are training to maybe do a competition or a race, or in CrossFit, there's a lot of competitions. In Jiu-Jitsu, there's some regional competitions as well and local competitions. So just asking them about kind of what their progress looks like there and how they're feeling about everything. But whatever you can do to just make it personal. Another approach that's more of like using group chat or a Facebook group is any sort of interesting or valuable content that could generate a discussion. So there's things like recipes, events going on in the area, just things that you think people could be into and have a conversation about.
And being an accountability coach for that person. They're there to change their mind and change their body. So that's a great idea. And your front desk staff is probably sitting there anyways with nothing to do. So get them active with your members.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. And so a lot of that, again, you can do this with our product or other softwares, but you really do need to leverage technology. You can't just tell your front desk staff like, hey, reach out to, but you need to have an organized piece of technology that lets you do that, track personal client information, manage those communications, know who you haven't reached out to in 20 days or who you could reach out to. So one of my favorite, a quick kind of plug for us, one of my favorite features we released at the end of last year is called Wodify Retain. And it uses machine learning to predict who is most likely to cancel based on tons and tons of data points, but primarily like attendance trends, performance results. So you look at all this stuff, and that's one way just to give your staff if you have 250 clients, they might be like, well, where do I even? So this is a way to be like, call these 10 people, check in on them, shoot them a text, something like that.
That's awesome. Awesome. Brendan, what would you say is an insignificant detail or practice that you guys do or have implemented that's had a really surprising impact on the business's success?
Would you say for Wodify or that we've seen in our fitness businesses?
Either or, up to you.
So I think for Wodify, one thing, and remote work kind of forced us to do this, but it sounds really obvious, but prior to working more remotely, we did not really have a systematized way of running meetings. And now, because we're all on Zoom, the way we run meetings is a formula. We run all meetings the same way. You show up, there's a pre-planned agenda that you run through talking points on the agenda. Maybe there's a presentation or some piece of collateral to share. And then you, in real time in that meeting, document action items with a specific owner and a due date. And those meetings, we use a piece of software called Fellow, but those notes and action items are there carried forward to the next meeting if it's the same meeting stream. So what's significant about that, I do think this applies to gyms and fitness businesses as well, is a lot of times prior to this, we would have meetings where you left feeling like, what a productive, great brainstorm that is. You go back to your busy, stuff happens. Someone walks in the door at your business, like you go deal with an accident on the floor or something, and you lose all of that value. And so having the discipline and the rigor to be like, okay, like say you're in a staff meeting, to be like, okay, like let's draw some conclusions before we end this meeting. Who's doing this? When are they doing it by? And let's all look at it together so we're 100% on the same page. And little things like that, there's discipline and operational rigor, I think, create really productive and effective businesses.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that. And also setting expectations so that people can prepare for meetings. That's it.
Yeah.
Brendan, talk to me a little bit about your favorite books. What are books that you see new entrepreneurs or people in your space that you're like, you got to get through this book?
So I think about business books in like two veins. I think there's books when you want to learn about a business tactic that you should go out and find a book about that. And it can be really, really effective. So a great one that I've read recently, we actually had a bunch of people read it at Wodify. Let me make sure I get the title right. It's called Story Brand.
Yeah, by Donald Miller.
Building a Story Brand. So that's one where it's a business book. We're specifically, you're a big Story Brand fan. Yeah, I think it's you see it now, like you see it in other companies' messaging.
Everyone read this book.
Yeah, Story Brand's great. And that's a business book, gives you a framework to work through. So if I'm looking at any business book, I think, is this a problem or opportunity in my business I actually want to work on? And does the book provide some sort of framework that I can follow? Those are what I've found to be the best business books. StoryBrand's a great one for creating marketing messaging. And so I'd encourage you to read that one. Then I think the other category of books that have really helped me in business are not business books, but they're more books about any other interesting life topics. So a good one I read recently is called The Comfort Crisis. Have you heard of that one? So great book, authors Michael Easter. And so this book is about how, I'll give kind of the cliff notes and why it's valuable for work, but it's about how comfortable and kind of safe everyone's lives have become. Like a lot of people, spend their life in like an air conditioned room, at a computer, and just overall like really comfortable. And that creates problems. Like it makes it really difficult to deal with stress, and it creates all these problems. And so it's just an interesting book about how society's evolved in a way that like seems beneficial, but isn't. And the solution he prescribes is once a year doing really, really, really hard and uncomfortable things. And that could be a backpacking trip or an ultra marathon or just something. And the line that sticks out to me in the book is doing really, really hard and uncomfortable things makes everything else more manageable and easier, makes you more effective. And so the way I apply that at work is like, it's true. Like, and it doesn't need to be work stuff. Like if I go out and I do a really intense physical feat and I come in on Monday morning, I'm just like, let's crush this. It's just like a better, it just kind of makes everything else like you said in the book, it makes everything else easier. So those are the two books I'd recommend: Building a Story Brand and The Comfort Crisis.
So what's your comfort crisis this year going to be?
I think they're called misogis, I think is the term he uses for it. So I'm still kind of deciding, but I think I want to run the Tahoe Rim Trail, which is the trail that goes around Lake Tahoe, and try to make it in one go.
That's awesome. I'll be here cheering virtually.
All right. If you want to come, let me know.
I'm not a runner, but I'm definitely a skier.
Nice.
Brendan, I'm going to ask you as my last question, my favorite question to ask people. If you were to have dinner with a historical figure from the past or present, who would it be and what on earth are you talking about?
You know who it would be right now? I think this answer would change month to month depending on what I've been consuming. But I've been listening to the Lex Fridman podcast. Do you know Lex Fridman? So I've been listening to that podcast a lot. And he has some really interesting guests and is really good at just like interviewing and asking questions. And I think I would like to just talk to him at dinner about all of the stuff that's in his mind because of all those interesting conversations. I feel like I'd be able to have a conversation kind of through him with like hundreds of the most interesting people right now. So Lex Fridman is my answer. And maybe he listens to your podcast. So Lex, let's get dinner.
That's awesome. Well, Brandon, from our team all over the world and our listeners all over the world too, we really appreciate you and what you're doing to shape this forever evolving industry. I think it's hilarious and awesome. We've both been in this now for 10 plus years, how data is changing forever rapidly, and having softwares that can show you these data points, measure these things and do it for you. People get involved. It's super important, and know your numbers. That's awesome. So thank you, Brendan.
Thanks, Carl. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. That's it for this week's episode. I hope you found it helpful. Be sure to head over to our site, local-business-hacks.com, to check out the show notes and send me questions or ideas for future episodes. If you want to grow your business, just like the people you've heard from here, follow Local Business Hacks Podcast and tune in for new tips, tricks, and tactics. Until next time, thanks for listening and keep hacking.